Hi everyone, welcome to my new episode of A Digital Tomorrow. Today, I have the huge pleasure of having with me Deniz Güven. Welcome, Deniz.
Hi, Aurea. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me today.
It's actually an honor. First of all, for those of you who might not know Deniz yet, I'm going to summarize his very interesting biography. Deniz is currently the CEO and co-founder of platform XIT. He is also a board director of the new digital bank of Standard Chartered Singapore and board director of Colendi. As I think it is very important to explain right now, Deniz is an internationally recognized leader in driving digital transformations and bringing new digital banking experiences to a global audience. Prior to founding this next generation venture capital platform XIT, Deniz joined Standard Chartered in 2017 as the global head design and client experience, which covered 33 countries, where he oversaw client journey and optimizations, digital wealth, and collaborations with tech firms and startups. And of course, following Standard Chartered Bank, he became the founder, CEO of Mox Bank, a new virtual bank backed by Standard Chartered Bank in partnership with PCCW, HAT, and Trip.com in Hong Kong. Actually, virtual banking is of course going to be a very important part of our discussion later today. So once again, Deniz, welcome to my podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
So I think that before digging deeper into virtual banking, fintech, I think it might be interesting to, for the listeners to hear a bit more about your personal journey, and especially when it comes to your experience in Mox Bank, because as most of our listeners know, there are right now 8 virtual banks in Hong Kong. They're all thriving and becoming more and more important, and Deniz played a huge role in that virtual banking scene in Hong Kong. So that's why I'm so honored to hosting him today here. So after spending close to 4 years in Hong Kong with Mox, which, as I said, is backed by Standard Chartered, you recently stepped down as the CEO of Mox to start a new chapter of your life, which we're going to talk about later. After you and your team built together this new virtual bank from its earliest infancy to now being a fully operational bank with over 200,000 customers. So what are the main challenges that you encountered when building Mox, and how different was it to build, to work and build such a virtual bank compared to working for a traditional bank before?
Sure. Let me start, from my background, very quickly. I'm not going to talk about, about my entire career, but what I did actually, I've been in banking, more than 20 years. And I work for, many different banks, global banks like, HSBC, BBVA. And as you said, I was in Standard Chartered, and I worked for them like, around 5 years. My first role was a global head role in Singapore, and then I moved to Hong Kong to build something new. Some of the people, they call it, digital bank or neobank or whatever, however you want to call it. I don't want to label it like a digital bank, because the idea in Standard Chartered, it was quite different. We started this journey in a different way. Why? Because, we wanted to build a future operating model in banking. I think this is super critical, because if you start like, hey, we are going to build a new mobile app, and that mobile app, will be super sexy with some smart functionalities, and we are going to hit the market, in a different way. I think it's not the right starting, for the new startups or startup fintechs that you can change the market, that rapidly. You have to, understand that, what is the real problem? What is the real problem statement? And then, you should go after that. In Standard Chartered, of course, we were discussing a lot of different things like how are we going to do the real digital transformation? How are we going to do, different things, in Standard Chartered? And to be honest, Standard Chartered is a huge bank, as you can imagine, that we are operating in many, many countries and jurisdictions. And in these jurisdictions, in some of the jurisdictions, actually, we are the leader bank in many senses. And we are doing a lot of, good things, in digital. But if we are talking about real digital transformation, because Aurel, I think I can be a bit provocative here. Why? Because this digital transformation or this kind of phrases, they sound to me, a lot superficial, and these superficial things, you have to make them, tangible. That's why, we started, in Standard Chartered, with all the top management, everyone, all the, boards and everyone, we decided, okay, let's focus on how we can build the future operating model of Standard Chartered. That's why, we started, Mox. I moved to, Hong Kong, at that time. And honestly, what we did, first, everybody asked me, hey, Deniz, Hong Kong, and your background is Hong Kong right now, real, I miss, that place. And I'm moving to London, as I told you, before, this podcast. But in Hong Kong, it's a very, there are a lot of, banks there. There are a lot of, products, and there are enough products in that market. And it's a small state, right? 7.5 million population. But at the end of the day, it's one of the biggest financial centers, in the world. So that's why, Hong Kong is super important. And Hong Kong is a great hub, from different senses, from, different angles, if we assess it. And the most important thing for me was at that time, hey, there are enough banks, of course, heavily, banking, population, but do we have services in this environment? When I say services, because you can have, a lot of products, but if you want to, make them, more viable, more transparent, or, if you want to, serve it, in a different way, you have to, create services. And what we found actually, there was no real digital end-to-end service in Hong Kong. At that time, I'm talking about 2018 and 19, right? And of course, we started, with the ethnographic research to understand the real pain points of the customers in Hong Kong. We found a lot of, pain points in retail and SME banking system. And on top of that, we started to, build our services. Of course, in the journey, we did many things. There was no technology. We didn't use, any technology, from Standard Chartered at that time, from mothership. We built the technology, from scratch. When I say scratch, it's super important that we have to understand, we didn't use, any traditional core banking system. We built everything on top of a smart contract structure that, we can call it, blockchain. But right now, Mox Bank is running on top of, smart contract structure, which is our service ledger system, which was super, super new at that time. I'm talking about 2018, and people, they were telling me, hey, Deniz, you are crazy. This bank is not going to work. And as you said, today, 200,000 customers, more than 200,000 customers, which means almost 4% of bankable population in Hong Kong. So imagine. And the second thing is, of course, we built the technology on the cloud. So what is cloud? I mean, everybody's talking about, hey, migrating, cloud is super important. Of course, the output of, being on the cloud is important. It's not about, hey, we are migrating ourselves, to cloud. Why? Why? Because, if you want to be real time, if you want to be contextual, and if you want to run something cheaper than normal, right? I think, being a native cloud, it's super important. And what we did, in Mox Bank right now, there's no server. There is no physical server. Everything is on the cloud. I'm not only talking about processing, and being cloud native, it makes Mox Bank, super, super fast, rapid, and time to market and everything, is totally different compared to traditional business models. Of course, we applied for the banking license. It was also, super difficult, and we applied for that also. Just after that, we sold the 34.9% of the company to our JV partners. And that was also an interesting journey for Mox Bank and for all of us there. Why I'm saying that, most of the time, I think it's a very important learning. Most of the time, in fintech or startup ecosystems, we always discuss, hey, we have a great idea and let's go with it and don't share with anyone. I think you have to build the systems to share with everyone. Once you share, you become bigger. And this is super, super important for me. Why? Because we accepted all these JV partners. One is PCCW, Hong Kong Telecom. They are the biggest telecom operator. Plus, they have a lot of different companies, TV, ADSL, internet, etc. The other one is trip.com. Actually, you know, they are the second biggest digital travel operator in the world. So why we've got these guys? Because they gave us, you know, a very strong distribution channels, a lot of channels, not only digital, also physical. Plus, if you want to touch the daily life of the customers, so you have to create services. And if you want to create services, you need, you know, this kind of JV partners, and you have to, you know, bond your services, you know, with them to reach the daily life of the customers. That's why, you know, we accepted, not because of only taking a capital or, you know, taking an injection, you know, from outside. And finally, of course, you know, we launched the bank in 2020. It was a pretty difficult year for us because it was the first year of pandemic. People, they always ask me, hey, Deniz, you know, was that difficult? I don't know. I'm sure, you know, in these days, you know, many people, they try to, you know, build banks, and Mox Bank is a licensed bank. It's not only a small fintech, but we deliver the bank, you know, from our homes. So imagine, you know, we couldn't go to offices, and the coordination, people, motivation, and synchronizing everything, you know, from our houses and everything, it was so difficult. But we delivered the bank. Today, the team is growing, you know, super good, and the numbers are so good, and I'm so proud of it.
Well, thank you very much for sharing all this with me. And I can imagine, of course, that it was very challenging now to launch a virtual bank during the pandemic, the worst possible period, I guess. And I think that, well, despite the fact that everything you mentioned is very interesting, there are some ideas that I found well, especially relevant, especially when it comes to the tech. This idea of building everything from scratch, all the tech area, this idea of being a cloud-based, this idea as well of being smart contract-based. And also, I think it is very interesting what you mentioned about sharing well, your knowledge or know-how in order to become bigger. That's very important, because I guess we'll get back to this idea later, but when it comes especially to fintech, I think that, at least to me, it's not so much about just competing, but it's also about cooperating, because if just one company, tries to hoard all the tech and they do not share it, I mean, it's going to be bad for the market, because that company is not going to grow either. So I think it was a very interesting thought to share.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Before going into detail into that area of cooperating, etc., I would like to talk a bit more about this license area that you mentioned before. I mean, as you know, in Asia, we've seen many governments coming up with either digital banking licenses or sandboxes. So, would you like maybe to share a little bit more about the global trends in the industry, either globally or in Hong Kong? And also, what do you think about the approach taken by the Hong Kong Monetary Authority? What has Hong Kong done well, maybe compared to other jurisdictions, in order to allow those 8 banks to be created, and not just to be created, but also to thrive as they are doing right now?
Yeah, I think we were lucky in Hong Kong. Why? Because HKMA is a pioneering organization, I should say. Why? Because they started to talk about these digital banking licenses in 2017, maybe a bit earlier, but they announced the first draft at that year. So imagine 17, and today, of course, in many jurisdictions, we see new licenses. So Singapore came up, and then Malaysia, Taiwan is there. Also, it's also happening in many markets right now. But in 17, HKMA started to talk about it, and they executed super fast, and we were part of it, right? But of course, digital banking license is not only enough, right? You have to think about the other part of all these things together. Otherwise, only one license is not enough. You have to think about also different regulations on the regulatory side. Plus, is market ready for that? For example, customers, yeah, of course, customers should be ready first, and then your ecosystem, are they ready? in terms of supporting you with the right technologies, because in many different markets it was super difficult to find the right technologies if you want to build a digital model. And in Hong Kong, in the beginning it was difficult. And the third one, of course, people. And I'm sorry, I was talking about technology a bit more previously, but let me tell you one thing: forget the technology. People. If you cannot find the right people, you can't build a bank. Impossible. It's not like only building one service. I remember we were working more than 50 different vendors, partners, to synchronize them, plus technologically building something on the edge, also building the right services, also building the right risk framework and policies, all together. It was tough. So you need people. And what I have to say, especially if you are starting something like this, you have to check all these things together. Sometimes we find ourselves like, hey, we found the technology, let's do it. I mean, you should check other things as well, otherwise it's not going to be easy for you. So this is what I can share with you. Hong Kong is, again, quite pioneering. Again, look at today. It's not only digital banking, they're also working on RegTech and Reg technologies, and also the supervisory tech, SupTechs, a lot. So they invite a lot of tech companies to Hong Kong. They provide a lot of benefits to them to work together. I think this is quite critical, because Hong Kong and the location of Hong Kong, it's Hong Kong, but also it's part of the GBA area. It's super connected, and interoperability between GBA and Hong Kong, we should think about it. So what HKMA does right now, they are providing a lot of technology, a lot of regulations, to make this happen and make this area bigger than today.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I agree. The potential from the GBA is actually huge. And you mentioned something very interesting as well. Now, you talked about people. I think that that's actually a key point. Whenever I advise startups as part of those incubation programs or acceleration programs in which I'm member as a mentor, I always think that it's not just enough for a company, for a startup. I mean, we're talking about virtual banks, but that can be applied to small startups as well. It's not just enough for them to simply have the right tech. I mean, you need much more than that. You need the right team of people. And I think that idea that you mentioned before is actually spot on. I wanted to ask you now about financial inclusion, because, I mean, there is no doubt that virtual banking can promote financial inclusion. Actually, according to the very own HKMA, about which we are talking now, they said, and I quote, "The development of virtual banks will promote fintech and innovation in Hong Kong and offer a new kind of customer experience. In addition, virtual banks can help promote financial inclusion as they normally target the retail segment, including the small and medium enterprises. I know that the lack of financial inclusion is not such a big issue in Hong Kong compared to other places, let's say Sub-Saharan Africa, India, Pakistan, but still, I mean, what do you think that in general, globally, virtual banking can actually be like a very efficient and important tool when promoting financial inclusion?"
So there are different kinds of financial inclusion. So, for example, in Hong Kong, we still talk about financial inclusion. Well, what is that? What is the definition of financial inclusion? I think for Hong Kong specifically, serving everyone equally is quite critical, and this is also financial inclusion. I believe that still with the virtual banks, with the digital banks in Hong Kong, it's changing right now, but underserved, I think it's the right definition for Hong Kong or Singapore, for many different countries, right? Especially in emerging markets. For Africa, of course, we can talk about non-bank customers, unbanked customers. What we are talking right now, underbank, which means they are not getting the right services, from their existing banks, which they deserve. So this is, what we try to change as financial inclusion. You can have a bank account, but even with your 500 Hong Kong dollar or 1,000 Singapore dollar, can you start to save? Can you start to invest? can you make your money bigger? Can you grow your money? I think this is super critical. It's not only about reaching the credit or getting some loans from your bank, or opening an account and using the card. This is not financial inclusion, but serving your customers. The most important thing for our customers is making their money valuable, and and they want to protect their money. And so this is why we are building the new banks in a different way, in a different approach. I think this is financial inclusion and how I look at it.
Thank you for sharing. Now I'm going to ask you something, well, I mean, maybe a bit trickier, because it's actually a very broad question, but how do you foresee the future of banking?
Yeah, it's a very difficult question, right?
I know.
I mean, so let me combine a couple of things together here. So I was talking with, so I'm a board member of Colendi. Colendi is a bank as a service platform in UK right now, and they have a lot of clients globally. And we were discussing yesterday, and the founder of Colendi told me, hey Deniz, fintechs are locals, and the DeFi is global right now. So imagine so fintech business is becoming a bit more local, because at the end of the day making the fintech cross-border, using the fintech in a cross-border way, it's becoming a bit difficult, because there is no one plug that you can start here and then go there, and because of the regulations, because of different systems, etc., and the local connections. But DeFi, decentralized finance, you can go anywhere right now. You do not need to think about it. It's super fast. The only problem of DeFi, of course, I think they don't follow some of the FCC or AML or some of the things globally. But if they do that, at the end of the day, this is the democratization of money, and this is how I see in the future. And as I'm a banker, right? I'm coming from a banking background. Honestly, when people ask me, Deniz, are you a banker? I mean, what I say is, I'm in trust business, and this trust business, should continue forever, because money means trust, trust means money. And at the end of the day, what we want to create here, how can we use DeFi in banking and making the traditional banks or digital banks or fintechs more portable, and using creating interoperability. I think it's super critical. This is what I see, and it's going to be the future of banking. And I'm not talking about, hey, crypto is going up, something is going down. I'm not talking about this, because making all these things more democratized, I think should be the first priority. And the second thing is blockchain. It sounds like blockchain sounds like, hey, crypto business. I'm not talking about crypto business. Crypto business is something different. For example, I invest some blockchain businesses globally, and for example, blockchain based gaming platforms. They are like banks. They are bigger than banks in terms of turnovers, in terms of balance sheet, and they are becoming more bigger than some fintechs globally. Why? Because it's super easy, and the exchange and the trade is honestly there. It's super contextual. But blockchain, how we use blockchain, it's the matter, right? I think what I invest, if someone is using blockchain to solve a problem and using that technology to create a new technology and solving the problems with that, I think that's a great investment area. And this is also very important for the banks. It's not about using crypto or something, using the blockchain technology properly to make the banking maybe faster, maybe easier, and making customers' life easier. So that's the bottom line.
No, I mean, I fully agree. Actually, whenever I participate in international conferences or give webinars, some people approach me and tell me like, oh, I think that the future of banking is actually, well, it's not that good. Traditional banks are going to disappear, etc. And I tell them, I mean, I don't think it's going to be like that. No, I mean, they need to catch up, they need to adapt. and by like trying to embrace certain technologies, such as many banks are already doing, and you mentioned blockchain, for example. Artificial intelligence as well could be another one, and I think that's very true. I mean, blockchain, for example, can be applied in banking in many different ways. And I'm not just talking, as you said, about cryptos. I mean, blockchain can help banks make their processes much more efficient when it comes to KYC, clearance and settlement. So, I mean, it can be applied to so many areas to make their process much more efficient. And many banks are already like starting to tap into these new technologies. So I myself don't think that the future of banking is actually that bad. They simply need to adapt as they've actually been doing for years. Same idea, for example, applies to CBDCs, to central bank digital currencies. Some people predict they will kind of destroy the traditional banking industry, but I think that's wrong as well, because I think there's plenty of room for everyone as long as they know how to collaborate.
Yeah, what I can chip in here, actually, I work for Standard Chartered, so I'm still part of them. In terms of I have a relationship on the board level, etc. The good thing is of Standard Chartered, they are the sponsor of Liverpool. And what I like Liverpool and the football, and you are from Spain, I'm sure you are also familiar, to football. What I like, about Liverpool, they say one thing, right? Never walk alone. Mm-hmm. This is also the same. This is also the same. I mean, never walk alone. Get the ecosystem together and try to make everything bigger together, grow together. I think, this is quite critical. This is vital. Instead of, just thinking, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Big banks, traditional banks, fintechs, digital banks. There's no like this, we shouldn't label them. And I'm sure that, they can work together in different areas.
Mm. I fully agree. But, sometimes, not everyone, of course, some people tend to be a bit over dramatic and they try to make it look like everything is going like to destroy the banking industry. And it's not like that, because as you said, banks are like collaborating more than ever, because the idea is that that you'll never walk alone. So I think, I think that's very true. And well, you mentioned before blockchain and cryptocurrencies as well. So of course, I mean, I need to ask you, like, do you think that cryptos will play an important role in the future of banking, at least of virtual banking? Or, I mean, do you think it's going to become kind of common for virtual banks to allow its customers to sell cryptos, deposit cryptos, withdraw them, etc.? Or do you think this is just a service that just like very few of them will offer?
Yeah. So crypto business, crypto trading, or depositing, withdrawing, or sending. I think this is going to be integrated, to financial industry. It should be. There's only one thing, we have to think out of the box, Oriol, because when I talk to, many different people from different angles, and this is very normal, right? But we shouldn't be like a person who is going to be like okay, hey, these bankers or this financial industry, they don't allow crypto. I think what I gave to them as an example, if crypto is used for different kind of money laundering, or for different behaviors, or for different reasons, can you accept it as a person? Of course, it's seamless right now, nobody sees it, but if you as a person, can you accept it to use that money can be used in somewhere to buy a weapon, or a gun, or something else, or for human traffickers? Can you accept it? Right? So if you can't accept it as a human being, and we are bankers, we are in trust business, I mean, you shouldn't do that. So this point, I mean, technologically plus for digital assets standpoint, of course should be integrated, but with some frameworks. I'm not saying that this should be entirely fully regulated, but there should be a way and concept to regulate this in some sort of in some shape. Otherwise, I mean, we shouldn't make it open like this. Hey, integrated, you can do whatever you want. is it something, we want to, create in this world, or do we want to, use this technology to make our lives, easier? That's my point.
No, I mean, of course, I agree. I mean, I'm not against cryptos, of course, but I'm a strong advocate for trying to regulate them and the whole industry as much and as smartly as possible, no? Because I think that by creating a level playing field, you're actually allowing everyone to feel safer, no? I mean, you're allowing investors, like either big ones or retail ones, and pretty much you're allowing everyone to know that that what they are doing is safe from every possible angle. No? So I think that I need to agree with you. The regulation in this area is very necessary to make sure that whenever a virtual bank, for example, integrates crypto within services and products, they are doing like everything safely, and everyone is going to feel safe by using those services.
Yeah, agree.
And well, now I would like to talk a bit more about your new venture, your new project. I mean, we talked a lot about virtual banking and Mox Bank, which has been, of course, very interesting. But now it's more to talk about this entrepreneurial side that you started recently. I mean, you started a very relevant. You have like a very relevant experience in the area of accelerators, to the point that your new project, this platform XIT, is an accelerator, as far as I know, and an investing platform that aims to help the best startups to become the next big thing. So what would you say is like the most common, or at least one of the most common mistakes that many startups in the fintech area make?
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much. My new business is actually, I have a couple of different things, but one of my new gigs actually platform XIT. Platform XIT means it's like it's coming from exit without E, and X is experience and multiplying. I is investing, and T is technology. So what we are doing is we are trying to combine different muscles under this platform. So that's why we call it platform instead of an accelerator or an angel investing platform. Mainly it's an angel investing platform, but what we are doing is we have three important muscles. One is we have a technology company under that, and that technology company, they provide a lot of whatever our portfolio companies need, which means starting from backend to DevOps to front end to Android to iOS, whatever they need, sometimes AI services, our technology company, they can easily provide globally everywhere. The second one is we have a service design company in San Francisco, and that service design company, if you need to design a service, which means UX, UI, but end-to-end service design, they can easily provide a global view to you immediately. And the third one is, of course, as a startup, as a fintech, or a general startup, you need to grow. And that growth, coming from growth marketing. So that's why we have also a growth marketing company, and the combination of these three things, it makes us a special. Why? Because normal accelerator, of course, they can find a lot of different things, but what we are doing is these are our companies, these are our muscles. We are not only giving money to people, it's not only injection, it's about finding the right talents, and with those talents we want to provide as much as possible and whatever they need. I think this is super critical. We're in London, as I said, I'm moving to London right now. I'm in transition. So what I'm doing is there, and we are trying to help, and we have a lot of portfolio companies right now, and in US, Europe. There will be a couple of time in Asia soon, which we are working on it, and they're in the deal lines. So this is platform XIT. Of course, there are a couple of them, which I want to share with very quickly. One is, for example, the Minted. The Minted, it's a UK-based FCA license. Precious metal buy and sell company in UK right now. If you want to buy, sell precious metal, you just need to download the Minted app, and from that app you can open your account immediately. Immediately means a couple of minutes, and then you can buy gold, silver, whatever you want super quickly, and you can store it digitally as well, which you do not need to think about it. Hey, how am I going to store it? But if you want to store it at your home, in 48 hours, we send a gold bar or silver bar, directly to you in UK. So this is the idea, and the co-founders are amazing. So back to your question, I think finding the best co-founders and the best team is super critical. But when I look at all the startups and everyone, they are super fragile, which is very normal. It's all about money, right? And when they try something, and if it doesn't work, the business becomes more fragile, and it shouldn't be like that. And what I believe to be honest, this is what I share always, and the people sometimes they don't want to believe this, but trying again and again, I think it's the most important thing for the people. Otherwise they cannot reach the things, because sometimes you can do mistakes. And don't worry about making mistakes, because this is very it's very normal. And when I talk to startups, they always, hey, Deniz, people they reject us sometimes about a partnership, about vendor contract, or something bigger, smaller, whatever. Well, what I believe is actually every rejection we got was an invitation to keep going, right? So I think we should understand this, and and this is my motto, to help all of these startups around me.
No, I think that's a very good motto, actually. I mean, rejections are part of life. No, we all got rejected many times, I'm sure. I mean, in previous job applications or in previous ventures that we tried to start. So I think that it's very important to keep trying, and of course, by doing so, like in the smartest possible way. So I'm very happy to hear about this new project that you're starting, and I wish you like the best luck.
Yeah.
And well, now I would like to wrap this up and thank you, Deniz, for being my guest in today's podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to talk with you for over half an hour about virtual banking Hong Kong, your new ventures, etc. So as I said, it's an absolute honor and pleasure.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. Have a good day.
And well, thank you, dear listeners, for listening to this new episode of my podcast, and stay tuned.